Hi, everyone. Hey, Ross, can you hear me?
Hi, Kendra.
All right, we'll just give it a couple more minutes for people to arrive. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Kendra. I'm a program coordinator at Physical and Health Education Canada. I've been with the organization for about 2 years, and I come from a health promotion background with a focus on supporting the healthy development of children and youth. And I'll let my co-presenter introduce himself as well.
Hi, my name is Ross Campbell, and I am a subject coordinator for physical education and health in Anglophone School District West in New Brunswick. Our district basically is the western side of the province. We have 69 schools and basically look after about 13 curriculums on the health and PE side. I'm also the president of the New Brunswick Physical Education Society, which is the professional organization for phys ed teachers in our province.
Perfect. So we're going to dive right into our webinar. So just give you a bit of a background on Physical and Health Education Canada, or PHE Canada as most people know us. We're a recognized leader and vital contributor in fostering the achievement in health among Canadian children and youth. So we are an advocate for and we advance quality health and physical education opportunities in school communities, and we increase awareness about the relationship between health and education and why it's important to have learning environments that focus on an inclusive and whole child approach. We envision a future where all Canadian children and youth are living healthy and physically active lives. And we do that by working with several national and regional organizations. We strive for ongoing collaboration between grassroots organizations, provincial, national, and international stakeholders in the development and delivery of our services and programs. So we're excited for you to experience this professional development opportunity. So just to give you a brief overview of what we'll be talking about today, Ross is going to take you through some background information that will set us up for an overview of what At My Best is all about. Then we'll give you the opportunity to experience At My Best 456 and explore a bit of the website. We'll talk about some of the pieces that will be coming soon, and opportunities to stay connected to the At My Best program and to PHE Canada. Before we move on, I also want to mention, I'd encourage you to include any questions in the webinar chat box, or simply raise your hand and I can unmute your mic if you'd like to ask a question that way. And also, at the end of the webinar, it will take you to a survey so that we can collect feedback from you and understand how your experience was in this webinar. We always want to strive to continue to improve our professional development opportunities, so your feedback is a great asset to that. All right, I will let Ross take it away.
All right, so jumping into what health education is, and education in a broader sense, is looking at developing the whole child. So what does it mean to support the development, the healthy development of a whole child? Well, you're looking at multiple aspects. You can't just look at a child from an academic standpoint, or from a physical health standpoint, or from a mental fitness standpoint. You have to have a combination of everything. And as you can see on the slide, we're looking at health, we're looking at safety, we're looking at engagement, we're looking at supportedness and challenge, all the elements that are needed to foster the best within each individual child. Now, who's responsible for that? Well, families, students, teachers, schools, communities, we all have a role to play within it. And the important part of this is that, you know, when a child is healthy and fostered in all these areas, they become good learners, which increases educational capacity. So the downside, or the flip side to that, would be, you know, if the health and welfare of the child is low, health knowledge is low, health practice is low, then you have lower levels of education, and that's sort of a cyclical thing that impacts our global health as a whole in our society. So teaching the whole child impacts societal gain for everybody going. And a way of doing that, and a way of seeing that, and what I've seen in experience and working with projects within my schools, is the Health Promoting School Initiative, which is a wraparound sort of a framework that brings all elements of community together to support the whole child. And if we flip the slide, we are going to look at the first areas of health and wellness that you feel need to be addressed or supported for students in our schools.
So we put up a couple examples to get you started, but what we'd like you to do, we'd like to keep the session nice and interactive. So we'd encourage you to visit pollev.com/PHECanada190 to respond to our question. If you do have access to a computer, and that link is up on your screen, or else you are welcome to text PHE Canada 190 to the number 37607, and you do that once just to join the conversation, and then you text your message. So you would put PHE Canada 190 to 37607, and then you would text something like social or mental or physical. So we'll give you a couple minutes to start doing that.
So when you're looking at putting in words or looking at the areas where you think health, wellness need to be first impacted with this, in your scenario, your situation, you'll notice that on there, there's food and there's health and there's mental, there's social, there's security, social, inactivity. Those are all essentially the elements of wellness. And we're going to get into that a little bit further, but essentially for me, when I read that question and I looked at putting down what I thought was first, I was looking more towards the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and social needs of children. And I couldn't pick one over the other because they're all critical as a wraparound for each student, where mental fitness is the management of oneself, but the emotional wellness, that's the resiliency piece that students have within schools. And you look at the physical, which is self-explanatory, you know, the need, like the priority of needs, hierarchy of needs that we have as human entities. Our spiritual connection to, be it nature, religion, music, whatever it might be, that is a necessity as well. And in our social interactions, because we're social beings, and that needs to be fostered and and maintained. So wellness is made up of multiple dimensions, is kind of what I'm getting at as a conclusion to this part. And it needs to be different for every person at every school level, or in every element of our educational world. And they need to be addressed and supported in that fashion as well, which comes with everybody needs to be a part of this. So when I look at health promotion, health instruction, health initiatives within education systems or educational communities, I look at the pyramid of intervention. And I know for all of us educators, we're looking at the triangle, the pyramid, where the top portion of the pyramid is 5%, and the middle piece is where 25% of the students lie, and then the bottom is 75% of the population lies there. And we know as educators that we spend 95% of the time working with the 5% and so forth all the way down. Well, when I look at the health and the population health and the upstream approach to health promoting schools and using curriculums like that, My Best, I look at the bottom line of that pyramid, the very, very bottom line, and that is where all this work lies, because it's encompassing everybody and everything within the whole pyramid. It's not spending time in any one of the sections. It's working from the bottom up, far, far upstream. So if we can switch the slide now. And speaking to those elements of wellness, and I know I mentioned a few of them. If you look on the screen, you'll see emotional and physical, the financial piece and the intellectual piece, the occupational piece, and they all interact and affect one another as well. So if you look at wellness, wellness is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being, and is not merely just an absence of being sick or disease. So it's an active process of becoming aware of making choices toward healthy and fulfilling life. So wellness is more than just being free of being sick or being free of illness. It is a process of growth and change that is very interactive and sort of almost like a building block format. So you'll see in the slide again, the 8 dimensions of wellness, and this is what our school communities need to support. And for students, but also for the adults and other people within the building as well. That's an often forgotten approach, a tactic in approach, is that you have to look at the wellness of all to impact the wellness of the youth as well within the educational piece. So all educators and adults in an educational community are responsible for this, for themselves and for their students. Your physical education teachers, for instance, contribution piece to this would be providing the foundations and confidence capabilities of students to be active and healthy throughout their day and throughout their lifetime, and then take those skills and confidences and capabilities into the community to be active and be productive in those other settings. And I mean, another example could be how much sleep a child gets each night impacts in performance in a classroom, how they get along with friends, et cetera, et cetera. So they all interchange and interact. And if we flip to the next slide, the model to which all this can happen in is the healthy community model, or your comprehensive school health model, or whatever term you want to call it. And it's basically essentially a wraparound approach to affecting change in a community or in an element or entity. So when you look at the health promoting school or the healthy school community model, it's comprehensive in its approach. You look at any initiative or project that you do to make or exact change in any one of the 4 pillars, which would be physical activity, healthy eating, mental fitness, or risk reduction. You need to address these 5 elements you see circling the healthy school community button in the middle of the diagram. So, for instance, an example could be looking at healthy eating. So in healthy eating, you want to have teaching and learning happening in the classroom that aligns with that goal. You want physical and social environment to model what healthy eating is and healthy nutrition. So signage, gardens, plants in classrooms, cafeteria service, teachers walking through the school modeling different healthy choices. Then you want to look at the evidence that's out there. You know, how have you done as an initiative? How can you compare the data from one to another? The partnerships and services, those are a critical piece. In a healthy eating initiative within a building or educational community, you need to have partners that come in to do chef programs, to do transfer food skills and food knowledge to students and adults, and to make it an effective wrap around of everybody in the service. Or maybe it's having a cooking class at night for parents, something at the school, all affecting change. And then the other piece is the policy part. You have to have policy sort of to guide things, and you have to reflect on the policy and sort of maintain the policies. So in New Brunswick, for instance, we have a nutrition policy for our Anglophone schools called numbered 7-Eleven, which is ironic given what 7-Elevens are in a convenience store form. However, the 7-Eleven policy governs what cafeterias can sell and send, and for nutritional value, what you can do for fundraising, what you can do for canteen things, for extracurricular events and such. So that policy helps guide what happens in the environments. And if you have health promoting school teams in your schools, you can actually have growth and change in that fashion. And the At My Best curriculum is comprehensive in that nature because it takes elements of all of these balls and puts them into the teachings that happens in the classrooms. And if we flip to the next slide, you'll see another version of what we just talked about, and it's a little bit more wordy, but it's a little bit more it explains a little bit more of the breakdown of the what's and whys. So if you're looking at the 5 benefits of a healthy school community, you see what happens when you engage in those practices. The 5 components again, which is what we're in that other diagram on the outside of the healthy school community, and then the essential principles behind it, and the reason, which is essentially the guiding reasons why we do what we do in our schools or our educational communities. So if we flip again, one of the biggest premises, though, when you're looking at the curricular piece and the instructional piece and the teaching piece, and using a resource like At My Best as an example, you want to have it so that it's an inquiry-based process. So inquiry-based learning, for those who are unfamiliar, which I highly doubt that anybody is really unfamiliar with it in the education world, is that it's active learning that places students' questions, ideas, and experiences, observations at the center of the learning. So teacher facilitates the environment and the opportunity. Students lead the activity and thought process through interest and strength. So it's a strength-based approach where all students find an element of capacity within the project part. And if you look at what's on the slide, you'll see that it's essentially student-centered, directed, driven by question, encouraged discussion and research, promotes reflection, which we'll talk about in a minute, and teachers act as the facilitator for it. So they're not necessarily teacher talking as much as guiding, which is how good instruction happens in most classrooms and teaching environments. So if we flip, we'll see a diagram that says inquiry-based learning, and it has 6 sort of steps, or 6 sort of rotating steps around the reflection piece. And the reflection piece is in the middle of Koons Model because reflection is key in all elements of this. We have to reflect to plan, retrieve, process, create, share, and evaluate. So I'm going to go a little bit about this, not the whole lot, but essentially this model is looking at attacking concepts and things. And that's how I use the wording with my students when I worked with them on inquiry-based sort of method of teaching. Reflection is all through it. It addresses the affective and cognitive elements of metacognition. But if you look at the first phase, the planning phase, it's the most important because it's the foundation, if you will. It's looking for the overarching theme. So that's where the interest and strength base sort of comes in. The big ideas where the students' interest and curiosity are sort of guiding and leading. So if you flip to retrieving, the retrieving sort of section of that model, and it's where you start thinking about the information. They have the information they may want. They spend time exploring and thinking about the information, and they look to come to more of a defined focus. So it's looking at attack points for the research part. So it's the attack points of what they're going to go, they're angling for underneath the theme. Get into processing, and the processing component is really where the students found the focus of inquiry. So they got a specific, authentic question, and it can be based on a personal perspective or a compelling type of thesis statement, but that is the process piece. So this is their point of argue. That's what I've always called it with my students. This is what you will climb the hill for in your study. Then we flip into the creating piece, and this is creating your display. So this is all the organization of the information and putting it into their own words, and them allowing to co-construct their own criteria and interpretation of what it is they're doing. That allows them to put their personal stamp on the topic of interest or strength to them. Then we flip to the sharing piece, which is basically I tell them the soapbox. This is where they can get up and let everybody know what it is they have been working on. So it's basically your presentation piece, their soapbox. And then, of course, the evaluation piece, because everything needs to be evaluated. It's the area where the students should be able to articulate the importance of the kind of work they're doing and developing, and put the connections between their inquiry and school and work activities outside of school. So you should make the connections between the research piece and the actual real life implications of it. So an example could be a statement of being healthy as a topic, and how does this process attack that statement. So we want the students to attack the statement that they make and prove the angles and connections to it. And the piece that nicely fits with the At My Best within this model of thinking is that it sort of goes along with the I, we, us derivative or guideline of the At My Best curriculum, which Kendra's going to talk to you about in a minute. But the I piece is the individual. That's I am better. So their statement impacts them. Their research, their statement is I, so it's driven on strength or interest. We as a group working together as a collective and researching this piece and doing that, and then us as a greater society, the impact of it. So global health improves it through work that we do in school and these types of projects through these types of curriculum. So that's a very short, maybe convoluted explanation or work with inquiry-based learning, but inquiry-based learning is the foundations of good instruction for all topics, but in particular, when you look at health instruction and health connections to curriculum, it's a really neat way, because then you can pull in multiple subjects from different curriculi and have them impacted in this thought process. We move on to the next slide.
All right, so that overview of whole child development, comprehensive school health, and inquiry-based learning is sort of our preamble to get us into what the At My Best program is all about. So it is a free curriculum-linked resource for teachers that work with students in kindergarten to grade 6. And today we're focusing on the 4, 5, 6 program. So the program was designed to optimize children's physical and emotional development, and it's been designed to support your delivery of a quality health and physical education program. Beyond that, it's a great resource to use for implementation of daily physical activity if that applies to you and your province, or just general movement, especially the At My Best task cards, which I'll get into. The objective of the program is that it inspires and motivates children and their families to make healthier choices and develop lifelong healthy habits. And it uses a social ecological framework to structure its contents. And it's the approach that we use to support the healthy development of the whole child. So the 3 major program pillars that are part of the At My Best program are emotional well-being, which is really woven throughout its contents, especially in the new 4, 5, 6 program, which we just launched last week. In terms of what that looks like, it's helping children feel good about themselves, being supportive of others, developing the skills to maintain their emotional well-being, recognition and the importance of identifying and describing how they feel, self-regulation, positive relationship building, and recognizing and understanding their own perspective and the different perspectives that people among their class, among their family, among their whole school community has. In terms of physical activity, the focus is on supporting the awareness and supporting identification of increased opportunities for physical activity participation. So like I said, in health and physical education, in DPA, or even on the playground, and also outside of school, so at home and in the school community. And in the 4-5-6 program, the focus is on identifying the holistic benefits of physical activity participation, the strengths, abilities, and limitations, and how they influence how we choose to participate. And also, the other piece that it focuses on is inclusion while participating. So recognizing that some games and activities need to be modified or adapted based on the skill level of the individual or the ability of the individual. Finally, there's a healthy eating component, and in the 4-5-6 program, this is examining personal eating habits and eating patterns, the holistic benefits of eating healthy, and also the value and the place of food in our society. So we really get into some topics like food security, which is really valuable for a grade 6 student. And there's also a Let's Cook section of the At My Best website where we offer you a series of recipes, and those are accessible to anyone. So that's a nice takeaway piece for families to look at together. So like Ross mentioned, in the 4-5-6 program, we employ a developmentally appropriate ABC approach in the content, and we use what's called the I, We, Us framework. So you really see the use of the framework come through with the questions that guides each of the learning levels. So for I, which is grade 4, the focus is on having students recognize their individual ability, and the essential question being, what can I do to support my own health? In grade 5, this looks a little bit different. The focus is on belonging to a team, class, or group, and the essential question is, what can we do to support the health of ourselves and others? And finally, for us, the focus is on developing global citizenship skills. So it's how can the health of our communities be supported by us? So the program is really about empowering students to make a difference, and this takes place in the final learning experience. It's number 6 for each learning level, where students go through a goal-setting process to take action. So all of their learning sort of culminates in an opportunity for them to set a goal, an action plan to make a difference. And that's what sort of makes the program unique. So digging in a little bit more to what the program looks like, it uses an inquiry-based approach. And like I said, there's an inquiry question that guides each learning level. And each learning experience begins with an essential question and includes questions throughout. So those are amazing opportunities for discussion, for new ideas to emerge, new learnings to emerge among a class. And the program involves families and a whole school community. And this is through the extended exploration question in each learning experience. And I'll get into some examples of that. And this is sort of where you'll see the most connection between the comprehensive school health model and how it takes shape in the At My Best 4-5-6 program. So in terms of what you'll be able to access, I've included 2 different lists. One is kind of the all access piece of what anyone can see on the At My Best website. So there's an overview of the program and testimonials. There's an activity center with movement activities for families, as well as that Let's Cook section with recipe suggestions. There's parent information on those 3 program pillars, so physical activity, healthy eating, and emotional well-being. And there's a Playday registration and supporting resources section. That's a component of the At My Best K-3 program, but it often involves a whole school community. More information on the website about that opportunity, but it can certainly be you can apply for the resources. Anyone, any member of the school community can take that on. In terms of the other materials, those are accessible when you register for the program. So when you register, you receive access to all of the learning experiences, as well as the introduction to the program. So that sort of gives you an overarching look at what the program's all about, as well as a letter to parents. Again, it's an opportunity to engage with families and get them interested in what children are doing in school. The learning experiences, there's 6 per grade, and those have integrated activity sheets. We've just had them brand newly designed, so they're fun, but they're also very straightforward and well organized. And the last piece is the printed task cards. So those are integrated into the various learning experiences, but those can also be used separately as well. So in terms of what each learning experience looks like, there's a setting the context section, which gives you an overview of what the learning experience is about. The learning focus for students describes what students will be asked to do. So something like identify and describe each dimension of health, give personal examples to demonstrate how the dimensions of health are interconnected. So that gives you a really nice starting place for what you're going to cover in that learning experience as well. Learning resources, those are materials that you'll need to gather. They're not provided by PHE Canada, but we were very conscious of the fact that we're trying not to be overly resource intensive to support schools across Canada. There are teaching considerations, so those are things for you to consider. We might refer you to additional resources like a handout called Strategies for Inclusive Physical Activity, or, you know, what informed the dimensions of health that we talk about throughout in the 4-5-6 program, which we use the First Nations Medicine Wheel, but you can always adapt this to your context. In terms of the guided learning experience, that's something that you'll take your students through. So the set is the introductory activity that sets the stage for the skill concept development, which is the main component of the learning experience. And this leads into the closure where you'll wrap up, and really it's an opportunity to revisit the essential question and encourage discussion, reflection, critical thinking, and new learnings to be shared among the group. We also have some sample assessment tasks, which is a resource for you to determine how you want to assess your students. And finally, we have an extended exploration question with cross-curricular connections, suggestions. So those are opportunities for you to fill more than just your health and physical education curricular objectives. And it includes opportunities to extend learning at home, at school, and in your school community. So I'm going to take you through one of the learning experiences in At My Best. This is the first one of the US learning level, or grade 6. And just sort of wanting to give you a bit of a taste of what this is all about. So the overarching question for us is, how can the health of our communities be supported by us? And students are going to acquire the knowledge in multiple facets to be able to to answer this question at the end. So we're going to, I put up on the screen the learning focus for students. And this is a cutout of the PDF document that you'll be able to access online. So the learning focus for students here is explaining the health benefits of understanding the perspectives of others, recognizing some of the influences that impact our perspectives of self and others, propose options for how to be considerate of a variety of perspectives when making decisions about actions to take, and express the value of supporting the health and well-being of people beyond our immediate community. So the essential question in this particular learning experience is, why should we try to understand the perspectives of others? So we're going to move into the introductory activity of this learning experience, which, like I said, is called the set. And it involves the introduction of the inquiry question, and then I'm going to play you a video called The Powerful Message About Teamwork. So this is what establishes the learning focus for students. I'm just going to work to bring that up. Give me a second. I'd actually have to escape for a moment. Sorry about that. And Ross, I'm going to ask you to tell me if you can hear it okay.
Yep, I can hear it.
Perfect. All right. I'll find my place here. Okay. So the intention is to actually share with your students a few viewing questions, which I've now put up on the screen, just to give them a focus of what they're looking out for. So some of these questions are, what are some of the challenges that these characters are facing as they try to feed themselves? What reasons might some of the characters have for interfering with others' ability to get what they want or need? So just selecting a few questions is always a helpful place to start and may also be class dependent. So moving into what the rest of the set and parts of the development section looks like. So we'd encourage you to sort of share responses to the video through a class discussion, and this can be modified for other ways of sharing information depending on what the needs of your class are. So you're welcome to use a think, pair, share strategy, a buzz group, or talking buddies, for example. And to move into the development section of the learning experience, you'll explain that students will work together to develop their understanding and skills related to emotional well-being, physical activity, and healthy eating. So moving into that development section, the focus is on understanding what perspective means and understand what it influences. So you'll be revisiting the video that was introduced in the set, and you'll start this section by posing the question, what does the word perspective mean? So that's an opportunity to have students record their responses based on a perspective type scenario. So asking them, you know, is this image of a glass half empty or half full? Is this activity easy or hard? Is this scenario or this situation helpful or harmful? And the point is to sort of lead them to understand that there really is no right answer. And, you know, understanding the importance of recognizing their own perspective and respecting the people around them, regardless of whether that perspective is similar or different. After that, you would have students return their thinking to the video and understand that the action of one person can change the thinking among other members of a community. So it's moving their thinking from what I can do to support my health or the health of others to what we can do, and recognize that by helping each other, they can help an entire school community be healthier as well. So moving into the closure of this learning experience, it's an opportunity, like I said, to get them to revisit that essential question of this learning experience and reflect on any new information that they have learned. There's also a series of questions to guide you through that process. So sorry that I know I had to kind of run through that quite quickly, but just wanted to give you a bit of a taste of what the program looks like. Finally, I said that I would talk about the printed task cards. I put them up on the screen, what they look like, and they're basically images and activity instructions. And you're offered the option to request these when you register. While you wait, because sometimes there is a bit of a lag between when we receive the request and when we can get them out to your school, we've made them available online as well. So you can download those when you go to all of the learning experiences, and there's a link for all task cards just up on the screen there. And then again, in terms of that extended exploration question or section of each of the learning experiences, I just wanted to highlight once again that it does include those cross-curricular suggestions, and it is an opportunity to extend students' learning at school, at home, and in the community. So just putting up a few slides on what that looks like. So at school, in this particular learning experience, students could create a record of the various communities that the student is a member of and suggest one area of challenge in the community that could be a cause for action. At home, it's an opportunity to, for instance, ask family members to share strategies for how to work with people who have different perspectives on what action to take and or how to take action. Finally, in the community, they could interview a leader or a role model in the community who promotes a perspective of healthy living that others follow. So I'm just going to give you a brief tour of what the At My Best website looks like. Just see if that'll open for me now. So the login is just up here. So you would just punch in your username, which is just your email address that you registered with. And that'll take you to the home page. These top menu items are accessible to anyone, and this is where you would access the learning experiences. So the one we just went through is Do You Know What I Know? It's grade 6, learning experience number 1. There's downloads of the particular task cards that we use in this learning experience, and this is the learning experience tab, and that's a nice downloadable color PDF, but it also prints very nicely in black and white as well. And there's also all of the links available like that YouTube video right here and throughout. Other than that, website is pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, my name and email address is just in the chat box. Or else, if you forget, you can always email info@phgcanada.ca. All right. Get back in here. So we just wanted to highlight a couple of things that you can look out for, and again, opportunities to stay involved with the program. So coming soon is an At My Best 456 scope and sequence chart, and this is a chart that we're designing to support your planning for teaching and learning. So it provides an overview of the objective of At My Best, and then it's broken down by the 3 learning levels, I, We, Us, and the progression of learning from the first to the final learning experience in the program. The other piece that is currently in development is the At My Best 456 Celebration of Learning, which we're planning to launch in the spring. And this is an opportunity to, it'll be a culminating activity for students that participated in the 456 program, to sort of sum up everything that they learned in the program. So stay tuned for those 2 pieces. In terms of staying involved and staying connected, We are beginning a PhotoVoiced Research project that will take place between January and June. And it's an opportunity to invite students to share what the program means to them, their school, and their school community. And that's research using pictures. So if you have any interest in that opportunity, I'd encourage you to just send me an email for more information, and my email address is at the bottom. Just the last couple of slides before we give you an opportunity for questions. We have an At My Best campaign that will champion comprehensive school health, and we'd love it if you would join the conversation and share your experience using the program using the hashtag #AtMyBest on social media, so Facebook or Twitter are your best bets, and that will be coming in 2018. So in order to sort of stay up to date on those announcements, I'd encourage you to become a supporter. I've included the link at the bottom of the page, and that's completely free, and you'll receive our monthly newsletter, our In Touch, as well as any email exclusives that will let you know what's going on and how you can get involved. So that is it from us, and we have about 10 more minutes. I actually thought that we would be over time, but I guess we have about 10 minutes for questions, discussions, opportunities for you all to connect. So feel free to include any questions in the chat box, or else raise your hand and I can unmute your mic to give you an opportunity to ask. So I'll give you a few minutes to think that through. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions that are coming in. So I'm just going to read them out for the group, and then between Ross and I, we will do our best to share our insights. And if anyone in the group would like to offer some insights as well, again, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat box. So the first question is, what would you say is the average time you would spend on one lesson for any of the 4, 5, 6 grades? That's a great question, Suzanne. It is a brand new program. We did go through a pilot process and we reduced the number of learning experiences to 6 rather than 7. I would say gauge the interest level in specific topics by your students' interest and what would be most meaningful to them. So I think that's a great way, like a good starting place. I would say maybe 2 classes, 3 classes per her learning experience at this point. And I'd also encourage you to feed back with us and let us know so that we can share that information as well. I know the program's also new. Well, I gotta make sure I didn't mute Ross. Oh, I did. I'm so sorry, Ross. I know the program's new to Ross. It's new to everyone, so it might take him some time. But any insight, Ross?
Well, my thought would be, like, depending upon how you extend your learning experiences too, because there's all kinds of extensions through multiple curriculum. So if you're taking one topic and going through the learning experience as it is on paper, and then you think of other things that you can embed into it that might be numeracy, literacy, science for that matter, health related, then it could end up becoming a larger unit just based on what I've seen and looked at and investigated through the site. But that would be my one thing, is that I wouldn't limit myself to 2 or 3 days unless that's what you had set aside for it. Because I think there's potential to go further if you needed to or wanted to.
Perfect. Hopefully that helps from the two of us. So Morgan, he mentions that as a PE specialist, he really values being able to keep his students moving during our time together, or during their time together. He recognizes the importance of nutrition, but struggles with taking the time away from physical activity, and wonder if there's a way that we can combine these things. So teaching nutrition and other sedentary areas of health, but still have an active component to it. That's a great question. I would say that through the At My Best program and our review process, we were very conscious of the fact that we did want children to be active throughout, and making sure that there are opportunities for movement. We've integrated the task cards, are a really great resource to keep children active. Maybe it's using them in the transitions between different activities or between their groups. So that would be my piece of advice on that. Anything to add, Ross?
Well, it's always a struggle when your health and PE are sort of combined into one class or one classroom environment. So I know here in New Brunswick, our health is taught separate than our phys ed, so we get our 90 to 120 minutes of phys ed weekly, plus we have our health courses on outside of that again. So our model here is our phys ed teachers actually, when the At My Best kits were a physical kit that came, they're the teachers, the phys ed teachers were the ones who housed the kit for the classroom teachers to come get to utilize or sign out. But what we did was is a lot of the skill-based stuff and the activity-based stuff is when teachers were doing the At My Best materials, we tried to have the skill sets being taught in the gymnasium at the same time. So it was almost like a team teach thing. So in the gymnasium, we did the active component and connection to language and terminology through word walls in our gym. So we'd have a nutrition word wall in the gym, and then that material would end up going back to the classroom for the more the sit down piece, because I know activity is an important part. But for me, though, as a phys ed specialist as well, I do look at time as teaching, because in the gymnasium we're there to teach. We're there to teach the students. We're not necessarily there to keep them active all the time. The skills and concepts and competencies we teach them are what they're supposed to be able to take out and be active throughout their life too. So, I mean, that's sort of a personal view on it, but that's what we work with our teachers here in New Brunswick.
Perfect. That's all the question I've got so far. We've got 1 more minute if anyone has another burning issue question that you want to share. Okay, Morgan, I see your hand up. I'll unmute your mic. Hi.
Hi, I'm actually a woman, but that's
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I've got one of those both names. I just wanted to say thank you to Ross for that feedback because, um, yeah, I agree with you, but I often find that sometimes I teach in a school where the students face a lot of challenges and they're not necessarily getting that physical activity outside of the school environment. And that's something that we're working on. So just that idea of the word wall, that's something I hadn't thought of. So thank you for that. And um, perhaps because in BC, I am required to teach the health and and physical activity components, we've just switched over to that. Health used to be separate as well. Maybe connecting it to a writing activity or something like that with the classroom teacher would also bring some of that back and still be within what they're covering in their curriculum and not feel like an extra for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you can provide them with the almost like the data piece coming from your PE or PA class, then they all of a sudden have the materials, and then they can create something from it as long as there's outcomes associated to it. Like for instance, like in a math cross curricular activity, they can collect data in the gym with just the physical activity alone that they do, and they can take that back to their math class and use it for problem solving. So it's kind of in that framework.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, that, I guess, wraps us up. And thank you again for all joining us today. Again, I put our email addresses in the chat box, and you can also email info@phecanada.ca, which is up on the last screen. And just one more reminder to please, if you do have the time, to fill out the survey that will come to you after the webinar ends. We really value your feedback. So thanks so much, everyone.